Well, for those of you prog rock fans out there, progressive rock that is, we're going to be, we're proud to announce a brand new show. Let me try that again. Now, all you prog rock fans out there, you progressive rock.
Not too many dying breed. They're probably on oxygen.
Yes, and they probably are at the bathroom right now, so we must have to say it again during the course of the show. That we are going to be doing a incredible show. The first one, and this is going to be the pilot project, is going to be at the Guard Theater. And that is in New London, Connecticut. And it's a beautiful classic theater, classic proscenium. And it's going to house a new show called A Night at the Prog. New England Pink Floyd from the beginning and beyond. The music of Pink Floyd, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and the Moody Blues. And what makes this show different, if I may expound on that, is the fact that you've seen other groups do sort of like their bar... their nightclub acts. You've seen other groups do their nightclub acts, and sort of like they dress them up a little bit more lights, maybe a little bit more sound, and they put them in theaters because, frankly, they can expand on that band's genre, that band's music, and take it out of the nightclubs and put it in a more, let's say, family friendly environment. Whereas, but they don't do much more with it than just expand on the nightclub act that they once did. But New England Pink Floyd from the beginning and beyond are going to be in a theater show, very reminiscent of, let's say, looking back at when Beatlemania came out in the 80s. It was a whole new way of taking music, taking the personalities and the history of that particular brand of music, that particular those songs and that generation, and putting them into a theater type setting, which gives a whole new look to it, a whole new feel, and gives it the full spectacle of a true theater piece. Big sound, big lights, big presentation, and Night at the Prog is going to deliver that. Now, the special feature that Night at the Prog has that no other show is going This is going to be a full 22-piece orchestra called the Windfall Orchestra that is also accompanying and is part of the three band performance. So this is going to be something that no one's ever seen before, and hopefully it will become very popular. And the show not only does the Guard, but goes on to do Providence, goes on to do Bushnell, and other theaters, and starting in southern New England and beyond. And right here we have some of the people. Myself, I'm the artistic director and acting music director. I will be replaced by a real music director, and so I don't get arrested by the no talent police. And I'm going to introduce some of the members of the crew and of the group. And over to my left is Jerry Birdsall. Say hello, Jerry.
Hello, hello.
All right, and Sean is. Sean Crawford. Sorry about that. Sean Crawford. I'm going to say, now we can edit. That's what's so good about this. We can edit. And in front of me, we have Sean Crawford. He is our sound and lights Jesus Christ.
Bitty. That's all, folks.
I know. In front of me, we have Sean Crawford, who is one of our lighting professionals that is going to be putting in on this show. And over to my right is, oh my God, hold it.
Jim Mansell.
I know. Thank you. Over to my right is Jim Mansell, straight from London, England.
Actually, it's Ginger Baker. Say a few words, Ginger.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to say a few words, but yes, thank you for the welcome.
He looks more like Mary Ann.
Faithful.
But I'll tell you what, this show is truly an art form. The show is truly going to be over the top. As our sound designer puts it, event density. In other words, more spectacle packed into 3 hours than you have ever seen anywhere else. So, bottom line is the music of Pink Floyd, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and the Moody Blues, all in one stage, all in one evening, and presented in such a way, is going to be something that you're going to want to go to again and again. And Jerry, what is your perspective on this? You think people like it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool aspects to it. Surround sound. I remember seeing the Floyd on their Dark Side tour, and in the stadium they had speakers going all the way around, and that was cool. So we're going to be able to do stuff like that There's all sorts of visual special stuff that'll be going on. The music will be really good, of course. We're also working hard to bring youth into this, and there will be quite a few young people hopefully being involved. And they let them hear some good music when music was handmade and stuff like that.
And there'll definitely be young people in the audience. And we have Sean Crawford, who is here today. His son is actually the genius drummer of New England Pink Floyd.
Yes,
he is. A very proud dad, I might say. Actually, you know what? It's quite. I'll tell you what. I am extremely picky. I created New England Pink Floyd with Joe Beige. He is the talent behind the guitar playing and the singing. Does an incredible David Gilmour impersonation. And when we heard Alex do his drum, it's like we're very picky, and this is. It's like, wow, we've really found a unique talent there.
Yeah, it's always cool to see young guys into this music.
Well, you know what, too, though? They're also more disciplined in a lot of ways, too. They don't complain as much. Oh, I can't make it. I didn't have time to learn that song. What, did Alex learn all the songs in like one day?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. He when he puts his mind to something, he definitely does it. Alex has been playing for a long time, even though he's only 16 years old. He started playing drums when he was 3 years old. He's on the autism spectrum, and music has always been his passion, and he just seemed to have that natural ability to play it. And he started playing drums at 3 years old. He would hear a song on the radio and go sit down at his drum kit and start playing that song. And through the years, we've gotten him lessons, and he's got a great teacher with Michael Savage of the Savage Brothers Band. And, he was taught how to read music, and in high school, playing in the jazz ensemble and the concert band, he learned how to read charts. So he loves it, and he's very thrilled to be a part of this group. And there's a lot of amazing musicians that he's going to be working with here, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's no secret that he's thrilled to be in the group, because when you're young, you show your enthusiasm and you're openly enthusiastic when you're part of something you're excited about, and it's actually infectious, because it's great to have somebody who is actually like so excited to be there.
Yep.
And actually, that's pretty much the feeling about everybody here. I would have to say there's nobody more excited than Jim Mansell,
yes,
who is
absolutely yes. I'm going to say a word or two here, especially about young Alex. There's two ends of the spectrum with myself and young Alex. Alex is 16. I've actually got shoes older than Alex. The fact is that I'm at the complete other end of the spectrum. I've seen my days in rock bands and all different kinds of music, jazz, etc., etc. I have to say this, Sean, your son is very accomplished. He's an extremely, extremely dedicated drummer.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. And coming from another drummer, I don't think you could deny anybody that. It's basically the truth. And I would say that he's going to make an excellent job. From what I've heard so far, he's going to exceed. I think you got yourself a young Nick Mason there, is it?
Nick Mason, yes.
I do believe he's got the feel. He's got the enthusiasm. He's got the temperament. He certainly loves the music. You can tell that the way he plays it. And I'm just looking forward so much to listening to more and hearing much more of him.
As a matter of fact, Alex, because there's an orchestra, we were deliberating over having a percussion player in the orchestra, and that really wasn't necessary when we were initially with the three lineup of the first two groups that were contemplated for the progressive rock representation, and that was a very important part of this, to pick out which bands are going to be best to represent what progressive rock is. And a few other ideas were thrown around, like older Genesis. With Peter Gabriel was a candidate we were really looking at for a long time, but it all settled down into Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I think when you look at the image of all three of those, when you listen to all three of those bands and together, you do see a sense of, okay, well, these belong together in a set. This would make for a good evening, but when we did choose to add the Emerson, Lake and Palmer group element, it became very apparent that orchestrations are a little bit less important with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, so it's such a percussive band. So, to make a long story short, Alex is now going to be in the orchestra pit during the course of the other bands performing, but more importantly, being the percussion player in the Windfall Orchestra during Emerson, Lake and Palmer to accentuate the orchestral percussiveness of that group as it comes in, which is really important because that's how I see it. Pink Floyd is like ethereal jazz and rock. I mean, you can't deny that David Gilmour is one of the classic rock gods of all time. And Moody Blues was a very classical folk, and there was a very crooning quality about Moody Blues. And actually, out of all three progressive rock bands, that's the one the women liked. That's just the one. They're the only ones that really love songs.
Yeah, I think the Moody's have probably done more than any other band. Maybe you could say yes to raise people's consciousness. They were real thinkers and seekers, and their lyrics had great meaning.
Yes, and Pink Floyd, though, on the other end of the conversation was very socially intuitive. Like, what's going on now? What is it? Why is society doing what it's doing? Why does politics do what it does? And the Moody Blues is more internalized. They're more almost religious in their
spiritual.
Spiritual, yeah.
Personalized.
Yes, exactly. Then enter Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, I have a tongue-in-cheek way of approaching that. I mean, first of all, I'm amazed that you can get three extremely talented alpha males together in one organization and have it stay together for an entire lifetime, which is a remarkable accomplishment, I must say. When it comes to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, they are. I would call that a very percussive, very progressive. Almost, this is probably the purest form of progressive rock that you could get. And there's a certain lyrical quality, a certain lyrical quality as well. Certain what's the word for crooning quality? I would have to say with Greg Lake and how he approaches, and he sort of counters the rhythmic and almost experimental quality of Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yeah, I mean the cool thing about ELP, they look to European influences. They saw what everyone else was doing. I mean, at the time, everyone in England was listening to what was going on in America. It grew out of soul and blues, and even though they liked that, they thought, well, let's see what we can do that might be different. And a lot of prog had a lot of jazz influence and especially a lot of classical stuff. But I will say up front here that we won't be putting daggers into organs and riding them across the stage, unfortunately. We're a little old for that.
Yes, and we won't be building a wall in front of the audience in the Pink Floyd part. And in the Moody Blues, I think the Moody Blues is going to be a nice complement of more or less their older material because that's when Mike Pinder was in the group. Mike Pinder, rather, and I believe that the audience is just going to love this, and it is probably going to be the most purest progressive rock show that exists. And if this catches on, we have big plans. We want to be able to also broadcast and maybe even tour, but one step at a time. And this is why we have this opportunity to play the Guard and to make a huge impact with this. We're going to be doing a crowdfunding to do pre-sales for the Guard Theater regarding the ticket sales. Ticket sales for the pre-sales will be set at $50 a seat, and get them now. But with the crowdfunding, we're also going to be able to supply or have the opportunity with this pre-sales. We're going to have the opportunity to have a backstage after party, and there's going to be other gifts and ideas for guests. We're coming up with them as we speak to offer these key fans who come in and make their investment with or make their donations with the crowdfunding.
Yeah, I think what makes this really special, the reason why I came the first time to come and audition, is we're talking about playing with a chamber ensemble, and we're fortunate enough to have Drake Smith do our scores. when the Moody's did Red Rocks, they lost their scores from Days of Future Past. They had to resurrect them. Drake's done a great job. He was working with the Bramford High School Orchestra, and they did a really admirable version of Nights in White Satin off of Days of Future Past. So yeah, we have scores that we're putting together still, and it's going to be really choreographed. A lot of stuff going on. There may even be some young kids involved, right, Wayne?
Well, actually, with the chamber ensemble, we get what we get, and when it's not so much young, but younger adults. Several of the musicians in the chamber ensemble and equally in the Windfall Orchestra are just graduated from college or happen to be in college at the time. So and everybody and there's nothing generational about what you're going to see on stage. And if you've ever been to these Prog shows that you do see out in theaters today, and there's been quite a few of them. The Musical Box that does Genesis. You've seen Pink Floyd bands like The Machine, and there's usually a lot of seniors, a lot of baby boomers out there, but they're also coming equipped with their grandsons, with their sons, with their friends and their kids, and we feel that the audience is going to be packed. That's why we have to really fill that's why we really have to fill the spectrum of entertainment to satisfy all generations. And it's important to us too that this is not a dying musical genre, that this musical genre is handed down because it is important and people do love it. And it's apparent, and you could see that early on. We see it because of the younger musicians that are also in the orchestra. I wanted to just make a note that Drake Smith, you mentioned him earlier, and Kathy Ann, who is his fiance, are going to be working as a arranger. Drake Smith is also the trombonist, and Kathy Ann is going to be conducting. So it's a very interesting experience of really true talent. And we're talking, I don't want to start piling on all their attributes and as far as all their everything that they let me see. I don't want to all their titles that they hold and all the different levels of achievement they have. But I will do that in future podcasts. They are amazing. We have amazing arrangements, and yes, you brought up a good point, Jerry. When I initially got this concept idea, was not based on anything but the Moody Blues. The Moody Blues putting out yes, of course, you saw Days of Future Past. They played with an orchestra back in the '60s. Of course, that kind of set the whole rock band and orchestra in motion. Okay, but what happened in the early 90s was they lost all those charts. And then the Moody Blues started touring with an actual orchestra. So that was great. And I lived in LA at the time. I was art director for television and motion pictures out in Los Angeles. And that's what made me sort of qualified to be artistic director of the stage show. I was actually, by default, the stage manager for the Greek Theater for one day because he hated I was second in line and the artist hated the stage manager, so I was there for one day at the Greek Theater. But that's neither here or there, war stories. But what happened was I used to go down to the Hollywood Bowl and see the Moody Blues every single year with the orchestra, and that place was packed. People would bring wine and picnic baskets, and their whole families would be there. There'd be whole tables, all taped off because they made a whole evening of it. And I said, this is no ordinary concert. This is something different. And when I moved back to Connecticut, then I said, let's do this with Pink Floyd. As soon as my friend, Joe Beige, who I was jamming with every once in a while, he kind of like a burly blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy who played blues guitar. And he says, I know you like Pink Floyd. Check this out. And he played Lick for Lick, Shine on You Crazy Diamond. And that's when I knew. We did a couple shows with him. I said, dude, you sing like him, you sound like him, you play like him. Let's do New England Pink Floyd. And there's not a Pink Floyd band out there that actually has one designated guy who has the voice of David Gilmour, looks like David Gilmour, and actually plays like David Gilmour, which is which separates us from a lot of the bigger bands that play Pink Floyd, like Australian Pink Floyd and Brit Floyd, France, for example. So I said, let's put an orchestra, but in this case, we were talking a chamber ensemble, just to keep it conservative, with our Pink Floyd band. And that was interesting. I was lucky enough to have been working with Drake Smith. Drake Smith is a remarkable talent. He was playing with my lawyer in a trombone group called Sliders. And I heard about him through my lawyer, Isaiah Cooper. And he says, yeah, there's this guy. He's good. He can arrange for us. And I said, really? Yeah, check it out. This guy's a genius. Drake Smith is a genius. And I got him to do some arrangements for us. Next thing you know, he says, hey, check this out. I arranged Nights in White Satin for a Brantford High School. I have never heard anything like this. His girlfriend at the time, Kathy Ann, I got to stick her name in there somewhere. I don't know her last name. Sorry. His girlfriend, Kathy Ann, had actually done it was the choral director for it, and she did a remarkable job of not only designing and directing the chorus, but Drake Smith did the arrangement for the entire 60-piece orchestra, and it sounds brilliant. And I said, this is going to be good. Drake Smith did all the arrangements for our Moody Blues, all the arrangements for Pink Floyd, and now to come, he's finishing up on Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So this is going to be quite special. Now, when it comes to sound and lights and special effects on stage, we're off to another whole area. So Sean, Sean is one of our sound and lighting technicians, and why don't you have a few words about the level of interesting intrigue that's going to happen with that part of the program?
Well, as you said, Wayne, you see a lot of these other shows out there, like the Australian Pink Floyd and, The Machine, some of these other shows. And, these shows are going to be unique, not only in the sense that we're going to have the orchestral part of the show as well, which is going to make it a little bit different from some of those other shows that are out there. But we're also going to be including, the light shows, the video that go along with all of that. So it's going to set it apart a little bit from some of those other shows and make it a lot more fun. You're going to have a lot of the visual aspects to go along with the audible aspects of the shows. And then we've got, as was mentioned earlier, the surround sound. We're looking at integrating into this in some of these shows, even in the outdoor shows. So I think it's going to make it very interesting, and it's going to be something to definitely come out and see.
There's a certain element to the I have to give it to the sound and lighting geniuses that are part of this. As much as I talk about putting these things together and getting all the parts and putting it together, there's the same amount of discipline and even more of the work and a hell of a lot more money putting together the sound and lights complement that this show is going to have. And believe me, the audience will not be able to ignore it and appreciate it. Yeah, I think so. Especially since it'll be the choreography of the lighting, if you want to put it. How would you call it? This is lighting design, but there's just going to be storytelling with the lighting and storytelling with the sound effects, and it's just going to be an amazing presentation. And I think nobody is more amazed than Jim Mansell. So, Jim, your whole perspective on the whole thing? It's like you're coming in, you're playing drums for the Moody Blues Group, but, you have a history of seeing these things over and over again. And what's your anticipation level on this?
My anticipation levels are extremely high because I've seen these shows in the UK. They've always got surprises. I'm pretty sure that my colleague here, Sean, is going to definitely surprise us. I'll have to see some of it. I've already witnessed some of his work. I do go online and look at various things that you publish and that have been published on Facebook.
Thank you, Jim.
No, you're welcome. Exceedingly good work, and certainly it's the added thing there. This father and son thing within the band is unique. I think it's great.
That's awesome.
There's Sean's doing sound and light and such like and visual effect. He's got his son who's involved in the drumming side of it, which is a close affinity to myself, being Moody Blues drummer. And just the whole package, it's almost becoming family-like, which is the whole essence of what we're trying to achieve here. We're not trying to make a rock concert of this. We're trying to make this a family event. And you've got family within the event is actually depicting that very, very thought and train of thought and mind that says we want this to be a family affair. And it's exactly that. I can't have any of my family here. It's too expensive to get them across the pond. You never know. I may have some turn up to see the show if it gets that good. So yeah,
You'd be surprised. It's like we've done a few shows like in Misquamicut Beach and around, and as soon as we start playing this type of music, the Brits come out of the woodwork.
Oh yeah. They're here, don't you? There's actually a Facebook site which is Brits living in the US. And I communicate with several of those people, and I'm surprised at the number of actual people that live in Connecticut. It's even shocked me. I've been here nearly 13 years now, and it shocked me the amount of people that surround me within local areas even that are actually Brits, and they've just moved here, they've got families, they've got life here. Why don't we have a little bit of the old Brit flavour, and let's have this music that's basically come from Britain? I mean, come on.
I know.
You guys love it, and we love doing it, and you guys do it as well as we do. So why don't we just put the whole thing together and make it a great big family show and a big event?
My enthusiasm is 11. And my nipples are rock hard just talking about it. So I think what we're going to do is, now, Jerry, he just brought up a good point. All these bands are from the same generation, from the 70s and to arguably the 60s, and it is all cast under this one name, Prog Rock. Give us your in-depth feelings and pretty much what you want everybody to know about progressive rock and why this is important and why they will love it.
Let's see. Oof, boy. I was in a band's. What happened was I had a cousin who was older than me who played guitar, and his brother played drums. They needed a bass player, so that's how I started doing that. But I was never that enthused about playing the regular pop stuff that was on the radio. Just didn't really do anything for me. So we played. Our big thing was we backed up Jay and the Techniques at Ekman Center. I forget what year that was, but I stuck my bass under the bed and just, I don't know, just wasn't hearing anything. Then I heard like King Crimson. I heard Court of the Crimson King and Schizoid Man, and I took the top of my head off and I said, this is what I want. I was listening to NEWFM, have to say that they did a lot to get people to listen to stuff, when longer tunes started coming into being. I got to, actually a guy I went to school with, stepfather was Scott Muni, so we went down to NEW a few times, and they really, did a lot to get people to listen to stuff. My heart gets pumping when I think of, my pulse quickens. Seeing Elp for the first time, seeing them open with Hoedown and stuff like that. It's just the stuff that I resonated with and just was really into. Moody's all throughout high school. I just loved where they were coming from. Their lyrics said a lot and just meant a lot to me. And then as far as playing, it was fun playing the stuff that was more challenging. I mean, playing with other people who were just playing, 1-4-5s, and I have to say, I get kind of bored with the blues. I'll be a snob about it.
I outright hate it.
But there's just, it's cool that there is some stuff that, has a little more musical meat to listen to, a little more interesting. I love odd time signatures. I was in bands back in the late 70s and early 80s where, look, you play, win the audience over by the end of the night, you can play whatever you want. And we'd always do things like Schizoid Man or Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 2 as an encore or something. It would go over great because everyone was drunk by then and they didn't care what you were playing.
Well, Night at the Prog, New England Pink Floyd, from the beginning and beyond. Now, let's listen to that name right now because those out there who are just hearing it aren't seeing it on a marquee or on a poster. New England Pink Floyd is one band. From the beginning is the Emerson, Lake and Palmer band, and Beyond is the Moody Blues band, because obviously Beyond's a Moody Blues song, and From the Beginning is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So obviously when you hear it, it sounds like a phrase, it sounds like a slogan. but it's actually the three names on the three bands on the marquee. They're actually three identifiable, unique, and individual groups with their own identities, their own sound, and with their own delivery techniques.
And people who are really into that music, their hearts. It's not like finding hired guns. Yeah, there's plenty of people around. If they want, they can play it. But, finding people whose heart is really into that music.
Absolutely.
Like Jim, I started talking to him about a year and a half before we actually ever got together. He was in things saying, well, hey, why don't you come over and do this thing? And I said, no, I don't know. It's just not the kind of thing I'm really into. We were trying to do like a British invasion thing, and that never happened. But I just love playing with this guy. I mean, here's a guy, he's forgotten more about drumming than most drummers will ever know.
Is this true?
I mean, he's got some great anecdotal stories. They're pretty hysterical from back in the day.
Somewhat true.
His cymbal work is great. I just love playing with him.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I do too. And when Jim first came down, he treated the Moody Blues music as like it should be treated. You see, most drummers, and I won't linger on this, but they bring their toolbox of their drumming things, and they take it from this 80s rock and 70s rock, and they're like this. They play it whatever they want to play it, whereas Jim actually takes the drums and he religiously plays the parts the way the Moody Blues plays them.
With the correct sensibility.
With the right sensibility, yeah. And
not just a woodcutter.
And he's got that old school way of holding the sticks. It's like so cool.
Oh, thank you.
I know. And
he sounds like Ginger Baker when he talks. So, geez, it's a great package deal.
Well, you get a double package for the price of one, really, when you think about it. You're getting Ginger Baker, but you're also getting Graham Edge.
I'm surprised Ginger Baker could talk at all with that overbite, but that's a different dental topic. So, Sean, what do you see as the logistic challenges here at doing this? And if I may, as artistic director, I can set this set up. One thing that's good about playing theaters is that each proscenium is somewhat similar to the next one and to the next one and to the next one. So you can always count on the battens coming down, hanging the lights, sending the lights up into the ceiling. You have a certain floor plan. You have a certain amount of staging that you can use, and you can put the keyboards on a level. You can put the drums up on a level. You can have projection mapping, and you can set the lights all similarly. And it makes for very comfortable going from one institution to the next, one theater to the next. So one of the things about New England Pink Floyd and beyond, it's fairly easy. In the case of the Windfall Orchestra, for instance, let me just bring this up. We have to actually in the Guard Theater remove a couple rows of seats to get the whole orchestra in the orchestra pit, and which is interesting. And for everybody to hear this type of music with a full orchestra, now the orchestra is all the same players playing for each group. And yes, there will be breaks between each band because we know there's a lot of senior people who are going to the shows, and they're gonna need to take bathroom breaks probably after every one. However, I see them more. I say that, but then I see them more in the beer line. Between each.
Well, that's more the outdoor events.
Well, that's why they have to take bathroom breaks.
That's at the Guard. That's at the Guard. And now what we are doing too is that we are doing pre-sales for the tickets, and we're setting up this crowdfunding. We are looking also to actually create this fan base because we want to know who you are. We want to know where our fans are, and especially in the state of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Southern New England in general. But we also want to be able to take full advantage of being able to keep you up to speed on where we're going to be next and what other functions we're going to be supporting. So by all means, make yourself known, and be a part of the ascension of what we have planned now and into the future. Keep in mind, Pink Floyd is not here anymore. They're
all dropping like flies, man. It's another 5 years and no one will be there.
Well, yes, it's true. It's true. And in 5 years is actually a very accurate description of the time that we have to really put this music out there in such a way.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer's virtually gone.
I know. That was surprising. That was surprising.
Yeah, it's very sad, but nevertheless, it's the reality.
Yeah. Now just Carl Palmer's alive. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's all, yeah.
Well, and too, is nobody's making music like this anymore either. So, this project is great because it's keeping this type of music alive and allowing people to go out there and see it live still, even though these bands aren't around anymore to play it. We're able to keep this type of music alive by doing this type of project. So it's a great thing.
Something really cool, a story, the drummer for the Emerson, Lake and Palmer Tribute Band, Tom Mafucci, he's a music teacher up in Revere, Mass., and he had his kids learn Rondo Amera in America on mostly percussion instruments, and they're doing it really well. And then he found out that Carl Palmer was going to be coming through doing a tour with his band, and he asked the management if Carl might perchance come by the school and hear the kids play. And so they said, yeah, Carl said he'll come by, but he's not going to play. Just to let you know, he'll come and listen and talk to the kids or whatever. So Tom was sly. He set up his drum kit on the side and left it there just in case Carl got inspired. And he saw the kids playing, and he jumps up and he started a drum battle with the drummer. What a guy. Carl's just, Carl, thanks a lot. You're a great human being.
Yeah, but Jerry, if you find a drummer of that standard and of that bearing, he's going to look at an empty drum kit, and to him, it's going to be like a magnet. He's going to leap on it without doubt. And I heard that recording; it was fantastic. The kids did so well, and I'm sure that he thoroughly enjoyed what he did.
Yeah, we'll provide the link somehow
Yes.
with this. We'll
Yeah.
share this for
Yeah,
people
I
to
was
see.
gonna make a
It's heartwarming.
suggestion.
It's heartwarming.
This is a passing thought. When you was mentioning just now, Wayne, about having some communication, people letting us know who they are. But I think we need to set up some kind of communication format. Maybe even a Facebook page.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously this is these are early days with setting up the crowdfunding. But by the time people will hear this, that'll all be set up. And so and of course we will be putting up the Facebook page and all other ways for you to be able to contact us. And by all means, it's like send us messages and send us emails. And if you are one of the people doing that are interested in and I hope you are, to be able to do pre-sales and to benefit us as far as financially, so that we can get the show and make it travel.
Yeah, about how many people involved in the whole show would you say?
Oh, God, I can't even count it right now.
It's over 30.
Yeah, I mean, going back to like you had talked about the logistics, Wayne, that's going to be a big part of it here. We're going to need a lot of people to put these shows on. We're going to have to, especially talking about the outdoor shows that we're looking at doing the festivals, we're going to have to bring in staging. We're going to need people to work all of that stuff, and it's going to cost money to do that stuff.
It's
So
probably more like 40.
yeah.
Well,
So
speaking of which, let's go ahead and change channels and go into what we plan on doing.